What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out this episode of the podcast. Today, I have my friend and mentor, Jason Ackerman.
Easy, easy. Are we gonna be honest on this show? What's going on?
Well, you already screwed up my intro. Jason's the co founder of Best Hour of Their Day, longtime CrossFit Seminar Staff, and claims to have the biggest box sale in history. So, I'm excited to ask. Jason has no idea what we're going to talk about, but I'm excited to find out uh, how he got to where he is today.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, I have no idea what I didn't know we were talking about CrossFit. What are we talking? I thought we might talk about religion, politics, Star Wars. We're gonna talk about CrossFit.
Sort of. So the preface of this podcast is I want to inspire people to know that they can pursue their passion, and so we get a lot
Oh,
of. I was just talking with somebody today where like it's easy for us to look at people
are you,
like
are you about to pull? Are you about to pull that we get a lot of, and you're talking about one person?
no, no. There's a
You say that about me. You say that about me when I say.
no, no, no. I mean, in general, like as a culture, like we look at people like The Rock or even like Matt Fraser in our space, and we're like, man, like that's so impressive. But they're so far beyond where we're at that we forget that they're also just normal people. And we only hear their highlights. And so I want to know like how did people even start? What called you to start? And what were the hard things that people don't know about? So with that, I want to start with uh you didn't start off as a guru in the CrossFit space. What did you start out as?
Well, first of all, I do like you just said, I do want to be clear to all your listeners. I am just a normal person. Like I know, I come off as, very famous, hard to understand, like hard to really envision what my life is like, but I am just a normal person like all of you listeners. So let's make that clear. No, I love it. I love it, Christian. Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. And we've obviously talked about probably most of what you talk about consistently on the podcast. But yeah, everybody in this day and age of social media, we tend to post our highlights. We tend to make it like a highlight reel, and very seldom do we post failures or not even failures, but just normalcy. And I think it's you have a teenage boy. I've got one kid, another on the way, and my buddy was just in town, and we were talking about, man, he's got like a sixth grade girl, and it's like social media is so tough because all you see are these wins, and all you see are everyone's highlights, and you forget, yeah, you know, Matt Frazier, wakes up, takes a poop every day, just like us, right? Like, and yeah, I think I love the premise of the podcast to follow your passions because I know your story and I know you've shared it on here, like you have as well. And yeah, I hope you can inspire people to do that. Something you and I have spoken about. It's like you have one life, so you might as well do something you love. For me, that wasn't the plan. For the record, I went to coincidentally my like best friend in college was just here for 2 nights, and we were talking a lot about parenting and our parents, and I was saying like, man, when I went to college in 1996, I was set up for failure. Like I didn't even know how to do a load of laundry. I remember the girl I started dating pretty early on in college, like she had to teach me how to do laundry and all that. And then, point being, like back then, your parents were very much like, okay, you got to go to college and then you got to get out there and get a real job, real job being 9 to 5. And I bought into it. I was like, all right, that's what I'm doing, I
Well,
guess.
you had
Like I
Jewish
went to
parents,
college
so
with
the
no,
real job was to be a doctor, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed them tremendously. Um, I mean, I call myself a doctor, but in all reality, I'm still not a doctor. You can be a doctor. An attorney will often, do maybe like a CPA, right? But yeah, if you're not one of those 3 in the Jewish, families, you've disappointed. So I've drastically, I've disappointed my family big time. But no, but, it's just like, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do." Like, so you go to college, and I was on the pre-med route, like, that's what I was gonna do, and then, like, I get to college, and part of this lack of preparation for the real world was like, I have freedom now. Like, my buddy and I were talking about, like, how do we graduate college? We literally did not study or go to classes. We partied our butts off for 4 straight years. And turns out, I graduated with a degree in psychology. I'm like, oh, cool. I can't do anything. Like, there's no job you leave a state school with a, with a 2.7 GPA in psychology, like, hey, we want to hire you.
Well, and that's one of
So,
those degrees where either
access,
you like either you teach or you go to med school or you go to not med school but grad school to like be a counselor, right? Like,
well, that's it. You exactly, like, so I when I did graduate, so my senior year in college, I kind of started to get my life together, and I was working at like 3 or 4 different gyms in the area. I remember one called New Physique. I was at the local Gold's Gym. I was at the YMCA, and I was at a couple others, like just doing like hodgepodge type. I was kind of actually doing like CrossFit as plyometric type classes, like aerobic classes. And then I got into spin and yoga and all that.
why did you
But
even start doing that?
teaching
Yeah.
those classes, I
Oh,
needed
so you were
money.
just like, hey, I like fitness. I might as well make part-time money doing
Oh,
fitness.
yeah. Well, going back even further, in my senior year of high school, they started a program where you can intern as credits. So I started at a physical therapist office because my parents basically made me. They're like, you got to do like one of these
And that'll
things,
lead you into
and
being a
it was
doctor.
terrible.
You could be a doctor of physical therapy.
Basically, yeah, yeah. Well, it was before the physical therapists were doctors, but it was on the right path. And I was like, had me like folding towels and like cleaning shit up, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So I was a member of the gym Club Fit that I had been at for a couple of years, and I gotten friendly with the GM and all those guys. And I was like, do you think I can do that internship here? Can I like work for free? And they were like, sure. But they let me do like everything. Like, they were like, you're training people, you're doing the test. Like, I was like doing everything. So it was like, so anyway, after that, I would come home from college and they would give me a job every summer. So it wasn't like, so I was already involved in the fitness. Like, I had a job there, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm in school. Let me get some jobs while I'm in school in Albany. And then I graduated college, and I was I've told you this, like, I was bouncing around, like I was chasing my tail, but training people, teaching classes, etc. But going back to what you said, I was like, this is not going to last forever. What am I going to do? So I went back to community college to get all my phys ed credits because I was going to be a phys ed teacher.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay, you can't do anything with this degree. Like you said, you have two options: be some sort of teacher. And then I was like, okay, I got my phys ed credits. So I finished that, and like it wasn't much. Like, I had to play like badminton, like just like that type of stuff. And I got my credits, so I could have then went on to become a teacher. And instead, I was like, let me get a master's degree. So I went on for my master's in psychology, educational psychology. Because, like you said, I was like, I want to be able to be a teacher or social work, or like eventually move up the ranks as a teacher. And then I finished that. Meanwhile, I'm still working as a trainer, and I was like, I don't like this. And I just kept doing the trainer stuff, full time, until eventually I found CrossFit.
Mm. How long? So then that's when you started CrossFit Albany, right?
Yeah, so you know, probably around 2004, like phys ed done, masters done. And I was like, then it was the struggle bus. Then it was like 3 years of like busting my ass to pay the bills. And I was really getting to the point where I was like, man, I don't want to get a real job, but I can't continue like this. Like, living in bad parts of Albany, cars getting broken into, all that. I was like, this is not, like, there was no end in sight. Like, I was like, this would be my life for the next, and I'm gonna be the old trainer at some point. Like I understood even at like 25, 26, I'm like, this is not something like at 45, 50, you want to be teaching spin every day. And you're like, I was like, this is not ideal. And I could tell the quick
Sure.
story. I was training jujitsu. My buddy Chad, who was a black belt at the time, he still is, right? And I vividly remember this. We're at the original school when I was training jiu-jitsu in Latham, New York. He shows up with Muscle and Fitness magazine. He's like, he knew I was a trainer. We've talked about, working out and stuff. And he's like, you check out this CrossFit stuff. Chuck Liddell does it. And I was like, I think I've heard of it, but let me see that. And I looked at it, and then I went home, searched CrossFit. Back in the day, it was like just the main site, and that was it. Like that was like I was like, oh, this I can do this. Like this, because I always wanted a gym. Like I had a notebook with like my dream gym, like sketched out and like schedule, like everything. Like, but it was like Globo Gym, a pool, a hot tub, a sauna, racquetball courts. And then I was like, I don't have any money. I can't do that. And I was like, when I saw this CrossFit thing, I was like, huh, I think I can do that. And that was it.
When did you That's really interesting. I didn't know you had sketched out your dream gym, or that was even a dream at all. When did you do that?
Oh yeah, I had a notebook. That was like from the day I started that. I mean, part of me knew at like 13, when, finished my freshman year of wrestling, and I was like, I suck at this, and I'm really weak and tiny. And my buddies all went to this gym. I was like, Mom, can I join this gym? And she joined. And I was like, I fell in love with it. And I was like, I want to have one of these. But you have to understand, Club Fit, where I joined, was like, it's like our Lifetime gym that we go to now. It's like posh, like fancy equipment, like every piece of equipment, tons of cart. Like that was kind of what my dream was. But you need millions of dollars to open something like that. And I was like, one day I'll have $1 million. Like I didn't have any idea back then, but I had like my workout journal, and I would write stuff down, like if I went to a gym that I liked, and then kind of like got pushed aside. Like this isn't reality. But when I saw CrossFit and I saw like the original CrossFit, was like, oh, I can find a space and like make a gym like this. Like I can do that. Like that's
Because it's
reasonable.
like
And then,
not a ton of equipment. You don't really like. You just need, like, essentially, if you have barbells and a pull up bar, you got a CrossFit gym.
which is how I opened. I mean, I opened, I think all in, I was probably, including my level one, certainly less than $10,000. I want to say less than $5,000. I mean, there was no Rogue. I mean, I've told the story joking around. Like I was Rogue's second customer ever for a pair of rings, right? But like before that, it was like Craigslist. My buddy Chad, um, he like worked for like a electrician, so he like was really good at like hanging things, and like he built my pull-up bars out of just Home Depot pull-up bar or pipe. So yeah, I was just like, oh, I can do this. And I had a client named Barry Feinstein, nice Jewish real estate guy. And I was like, Barry, can you help me find a spot? I want to do this CrossFit thing. I remember like I was training him one day, and he was like, no. He was like, you go ask Shy, who's the owner of the building we were training in, right? The racquetball gym, if you can rent one of those courts down there. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea, Barry. And that's what I did.
What so you said, like, before you rented out that space and, like, turned it into a CrossFit gym, you were, like, spinning your wheels as a trainer, realizing that, like, you basically exhausted your resource, which was time. 'Cause Right?
Yeah, no, it was that. It was like, oh, I only get paid if
Right.
I work. Yeah, and also a lot of those hours getting paid were spin or yoga or plyometrics, right? Where I was like, I'm tired. Like, and I have to do this even on like days where I'm exhausted, days where I didn't get a good night's sleep. Like you have to wake up and be energy. I was taking so much pre-workout, like type stuff, because I was like, wait, I was teaching spin at 6 a.m. or something, spin, kickboxing, plyo every single day. But I would also, if someone was like, "Hey, can you train me at 9 o'clock at night?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like so, it was like there was no rules. It was just like I need to make money.
So what changed then after you After you realize, like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this. Shy agreed to like rent out the racquetball court. What happened next? Because it wasn't just like, hey, let's turn the lights, and now I've got a ton of people in this gym.
You know, it wasn't that far
Okay,
off, to be honest. It was like, so the story with Chad was in May. Like I found CrossFit May 2007 because I remember it was right around Memorial Day. Started doing it every day. Like immediately, my own training changed, and I had some clients that I would train, and I started implementing CrossFit. But it was weird because I was doing hourly clients, so it was like, "Hey, well, let's do this workout. Cool, we have 45 minutes left. Now let's do this workout." Right? Like they're doing 3, 4 workouts. It wasn't now where we know, hey, we need a warm up and we need to cool down and some mobility. So it was just like an hour of CrossFit, and I took my. So then I'm like, okay, I got to take this level 1 thing, and it wasn't like it is today. There was like one a quarter, maybe one a month, and not many in the Northeast. So the two that were in the Northeast in like that October time was one in Pittsburgh and one in Toronto. And the one in Toronto was actually closer. So I emailed CrossFit. Nicole Carroll gets back to me and she's like, "Hey, we can squeeze you into this one because you needed it to be an
right.
affiliate." So she's like, "Hey, you can start your affiliate now." This is September 1st, 2007. That was the day my affiliate opened. And I took my level 1 in October of 2007. Um, so, but like I said, it was like I didn't put any flooring on the ground. So it was like we're on a racquetball court. We destroyed the floor. And then I went to buy cheap flooring at like BJ's, like the puzzle piece flooring. That didn't work. And then finally I was like horse stall mats. But I mean, other than I had that, if you go back on YouTube, like way back, there's some videos of what it looked like. But it was like pipe hanging off the wall. Like the pull-up bar would rattle because we didn't realize like we were going into cinder block. So it
Yep.
was like hollow. So that would like it was bad. But like on day one, I opened with like 15 members because all my clients. So like I was profitable immediately. I was paying 850 in rent. Like that was the handshake agreement. 850 in rent, no lease, no anything, just handshake. And and I was charging I think $80. So I was like, profitable on day one, but I was still unsure about it. And I was still like my schedule was based around my classes everywhere
Okay.
else. So for like 6 months, it was like, cool, we've got a Monday at 4:45, a Tuesday at 5. Because I was like, well, I gotta go still make money. And then it was probably about 4 or 5 months in where I was like, I need to work on my business, not everyone else's. And I quit everything else. And and then we had like, okay, now we've got a morning, a 9, a noon. The evening classes are, symmetrical,
What
consistent.
was that like for your finances? Because you say that like real quick, but it's like immediately like you were just like, I'm gonna cut off this flow of income, and it's like with the idea that like I'm gonna get more people eventually, right?
It Yeah, I think it was twofold. It was one, the gym was doing enough that I felt comfortable, but not like it wasn't like one for one. Like it was definitely like it's a risk. I'm gonna make less right now. But the same thing I told you, the same thing I tell everybody else. Like once I made that commitment, it was like boom, we're off to the races. I was at 100 members within a year,
Well, that's really fast.
paying 850 in rent. Like I was like
Well, and that was your only
rich.
expense, right? Because
You know,
you were basically subleasing a small spot, so like you didn't have electricity or internet or like, I mean, any of the other expenses that you would have
yeah,
for a
that was
standalone, even a suite.
Yeah, I lucked into a lot. Like I had full locker rooms because I was in the gym, right? The doors were open at 5:30 every day because the gym was open, right? There was some negatives associated with it, like the gym's open all day, right? So I think that was long term part of the challenge with like open gym type stuff. But yeah, no, my expenses were low. But a year later we expanded, so rent doubled. As new places like Rogue and other equipment came out. I mean, I remember buying 6 GHDs from Again Faster. So definitely started spending
What?
money.
So how long did you have that gym?
7
And
years.
was it that much? Was the growth like that the whole 7 years? Like, it was just, like, fast growth?
I don't know. I mean, it obviously wasn't like that
Well, yeah,
forever,
because you
right?
would
It
have
wasn't
had
like we're at
700. I mean,
10,000
if it was at
members.
that pace, you would have had 700 members when
Yeah.
you left, but and I
No.
know you didn't.
For like 5 straight years though, we expanded 1 court
Oh,
every
okay.
year. So I went like 1 court to 2 courts, eventually 5 courts. And courts being racquetball courts. Um, so yeah, I mean, at our peak, we were at about 400
Wow, that's
members.
really big.
Yeah, and I mean, $80 day 1. When I sold it, my rate was 185 in 2014.
So, for people who don't have context, how much are gyms that are hiring you to mentor them in 2023? What would you say is, like, a typical number that gyms are charging now?
I would say the average, I don't know if this is jaded, because I think the average should be minimum. Like, if you're a CrossFit gym in the United States, I think you should be charging at an absolute minimum. This is probably with a commitment and 4-week billing cycle, 165. I would say the average gym in the United States is probably closer to
And
135.
you're 185 in 20. Yeah.
2014. That's when I sold. I mean, we were probably 185 for 2 years at that point. And now let me tell you, like, you hear New York, if you're unfamiliar, we weren't in like Manhattan. I was in Albany, New York, upstate New York. Like I remember when I went from we slowly increased. Like we were increasing, we grandfathered people in. And we can talk about that. We did grandfather people in, which we had to rectify. We had to go back on. But there was a period of time where I was like, okay, these old people that I've grandfathered in, like we're drawing the line. New people are always going up. I remember I had this dude named Fuji was his like nickname, and we were probably going from like 100 to 125. So it's probably like year 2, year 3, and he was a member. He was like, "What are you trying to do? Get rid of everybody? You trying to go out of business?" And I was like, "Wait and see, dude." Boom, right? No, no one left.
Yeah, I mean, every time that we've done a rate increase, like, nobody has said anything. And something you
Yeah,
talk about a lot is, like, provide value up front, and then once you raise the price like every other business does, your members that you've, like, poured into are willing to pay that additional, like, $5 to $10 a month that you're raising it to, and it's not a big deal, and you just do that over time, and it ends up uh accumulating.
yeah. I got a bill yesterday. It's I think it's our water bill. It's like the town water bill, and it like there was a note on it, and it was like you're gonna notice a 7.9% increase on your. I was like, and gyms are afraid to increase 3%. Like, if you don't increase, and this is not what we're about today, I get it, but if you don't eat, like, you are losing money. Like, everything you're doing is costing you more. If you don't increase in accordance with that, you're making less money. Like, I had a big, I would say fight argument, but whatever. We have a client. I'm like, if you're not bought in that you can charge this much, do not open this gym. Because if you don't see the value, your members won't see the value.
Yeah, I I agree with you. So,
I know you would.
fast forwarding through from there, you said you only owned it for 7 years. Why did you sell?
Well, in those 7 years, I opened a second affiliate. So I had a coach that came on board. His name was Caleb. And we opened a second affiliate together, like 20 minutes north. So I had two affiliates at the time, Albany CrossFit, and the other one was called CrossFit Clifton Park, which was the town. And Caleb and I had our falling out, and I actually sold my 80% to him. So I had just Albany again. And kind of simultaneously, it was actually happening around the same time. So here, and this is the part I don't think a lot of people know it. They're just like, "Oh, you made a big sale, like whatever." Like the truth was, I didn't want to sell the gym. Like that wasn't my intention. I never even considered it. But the building we were in, the Court Club, which still exists, and Albany CrossFit still exists, was built in 1978. It was run down, and the owner of the building wasn't putting any work into it. It's on a very uh, it's on a piece of land that's appreciating tremendously. Like the area around it has just boomed. The building's not worth much, but that land is. So from a business perspective, I don't agree with it because they're falling apart as a gym in the meantime, but that land is just so valuable. But I was like, "Hey, can I buy this building from you?" And they were like, "No," cuz they knew like it's going to be worth so much. And they turned around and said, "But we'd be interested in buying the gym from you." And it was like, "Wow, okay, like hold on, I never thought of that." And here's the other thing that goes along with it. My lease was going to be coming up. Like we eventually we once I expanded enough, he was like, "Hey, we got to get something on paper." Right? So I had a lease and my lease was coming to an end. And he at one point said to me, and I don't want to make this guy out to be bad. He wasn't being malicious, but he's like, "Hey, we might not, sign your lease. Maybe we'll just do the gym thing here." Like they didn't have any obligation to let me continue. Now, I know CrossFit wouldn't have let them kind of swipe it out from under me. But I was like, huh, I'm not guaranteed to be able to stay here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this, find a spot. They've offered to buy it. Let's explore this. And then it started, I remember they offered me a price and I was like, fuck off, basically. Like, no.
Well, because in
And,
reality, like, as much as they
and
wanna,
that's,
like, dangle that over your head, like, you're the one who has the relationship with your members, and it's like, if you wanted to move across the street, it's like, they're gonna follow me, and you're not gonna have this, and, like
oh, I wasn't, yeah, I wasn't even worried. It was more like the headache of like, if I, full disclosure, I called up Kathy Glassman, like friends with her. I was like, Kathy, what would happen? They were like, we would never let them affiliate. Like, so I was like not worried about it, but it was like they would still have a gym that looked like a CrossFit. And it was just like, okay, like I'd sold the other one. I had no ties anymore. Like I was like, okay, maybe And full disclosure, like I was definitely a little burned out. Like it was at the peak of like I'm doing my own programming and I want to go to regionals and all that. I was like, simultaneously, like five of my coaches and members were opening gyms in the area. So it was like a whole lot of events happening. And when I finally gave them a number that we settled on, I was like, this is more money than I ever thought I would have in my entire life. Let's do it. And it was really enough money that I was like, if I can't figure out how to make more money by the time this money's gone, I'm dumb. I'm an idiot. Right. And I was able
what
to.
did, so what did you do next, and how long what was that period?
I mean, I sold, it was right around July because I remember like the girlfriend I was with at the time, like we literally went to the Cape for the week that like right after I sold, probably in July, and by October I opened my next
Where
affiliate,
was that at?
Saratoga. So I had a non compete. I think it was 15 miles.
Okay.
Um, Saratoga is probably 30 miles. It's a very affluent area of New York. It's like 6 weeks a year. There's like the richest people in the country come in for horse track racing. And that was never an intention. But my girlfriend, the same girlfriend, she was living in Saratoga. So I would go there a lot to like when we would hang out. And I was like, oh, this is a nice area. There's only one CrossFit here. They suck. I was like, why don't I open here? And then one of my former coaches, his name was Dave, he was interested in opening a box. And I was like, let's do it together. I don't want to be like digging into a full time thing again. I was like, we'll go 50-50. You take 3 days a week, I'll take two. So I was like, cool, 2 days a week. I'm up there. The other, like, it was like semi
How long
retirement.
did that last, and how did that work out?
It didn't last long, not for that reason, but like shortly after, I was like, man, I want to leave. Like that's when I moved to Florida. Like by February, I was gone. In April, so 3 months
It was really quick.
later, like I was like, yeah, like we opened in October, and I had moved to Florida in April. Very amicable with Dave. Like he bought mine out. Like we were brand new, so I was like, here's what we put into it. Buy it out. He did, but we were profitable quickly. We did a founders membership. We had 60 members by the time I left. It had nothing to do with the gym. I was just like, I want to do something different, and this is the only thing keeping me here. I want to move to
Why'd you
Florida.
move to Florida?
In Florida, that's when I really dug into the nutrition stuff, and I was doing that. I was working every weekend for CrossFit Seminar. Like, that was at the peak of seminars. So, I mean, I was just my full-time job was really seminars, but I was doing a lot of just one-on-one nutrition clients, and I was coaching at a handful of boxes just, for fun in the area, like
Mhm,
North
mhm.
Naples CrossFit. That was my main
What,
box.
why did you stop doing the well, let's do this. Why'd you get into nutrition coaching?
Accidentally, really. I was, you know, chubby towards the end of my ownership, and then I dug into macros, and it was really like it was truly one of those things where I was seeing results, and everyone was like, "Please help me." Like, I'd had no intent. That was accidental. People were like, "Will you help me with like what you're doing?" They would see you eating like cookies and donuts and whatnot, like, and then obviously that's not all macros is, but it was like they just asked for my help, and I was helping enough people that I was like, huh, I should probably charge for this. I don't have another job right now other than seminar staff, and that was part of it too. When I was doing that a little bit with the third affiliate, it was called CrossFit Soulshine in Saratoga, and I was doing it enough that I was like, huh, I can do this anywhere. That was kind of the indication, like, even if I moved to Florida, now I've got a little bit of a virtual business. You know, why not
I
give
think
it a
that's really
go?
interesting, like, having the foresight of, like, what you do now. Like, the first one was like, "Oh, I can run this successful affiliate. Let me do it, a couple more times." Even if you ended up leaving, pretty soon, but you're like, I could run an affiliate." And then you're like, "Well, I can do a virtual business where it doesn't matter, where I go." And, like, fast forward, now what do? Well, now you help, affiliates run their business virtually where, you could be in your basement not seeing anybody like you like.
Yeah, that's true. But, I think it's two things. One, it was kind of at the beginning of like the idea that you can work virtually, right? Like, there was virtual programming and all of that, but it wasn't as normal and mainstream as it is today. And then second, I will say, like, my backup plan in life is always open an
Mhm.
affiliate. Like, if best hour, like, Fern and I fell apart, we hated each other, and we're like, F you, I'm close. I would just be like, cool, I'm gonna open a box down the road.
Down the road of CrossFit Rife.
Like, yeah, like, I'll put you out of business. No, I mean, like, here, like in, Superior or Boulder or whatever, like, wherever we decided, like, that, I mean, the likelihood of this happening is very low. As much as Fern and I disagree, we get along great. But, my backup plan in life is always like, oh, just open an affiliate. Like, I'll get 100 members. I'll be making enough money to, I would run it very low key. And I think, you know, it would be a lot of fun, but I hope to never have to do
Sure.
that.
Was there anything in between or anything like I guess meaningful in between doing that and then transitioning to running best hour of their day?
Not really. Nutrition was doing well. Obviously, I met my wife, so I suppose that was meaningful, and that was um that was cool because she was from Cayman. She couldn't get a job in the U.S., but she had a passion for nutrition, and we kind of did that together. That's when I took it from just like, hey, Christian, you want to work one on one? It's 75 a week or a month, and I'll bill you on PayPal or whatever, right? To like, oh, we have a company called Own Your Eating. We traveled, like, we spent a summer traveling, dropping in at affiliates. Like, we really were booming. Like, we turned it into a real business, and we still have it. She runs it. Um, but no, it was kind of, it was like I got a little tired of coaching people for nutrition, and also it wasn't going great as far as like how we work together.
Because you were working together?
Working with her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, it was like, huh, like, and it was a lot of things. Like, if we never started best hour, we'd still be doing it together. It wasn't like that bad. But in the meantime, Fern and I started recording the
Mm.
podcast. So then it was like, okay, I really enjoyed it. Like, that was way more enjoyable for me. I love coaching affiliates. Roz, my wife, really likes the nutrition stuff. I was like, let's see what we can do with this, Fern. and that was the
Did you
direction I
have
went.
foresight on, I mean, because when you guys launched the podcast, like, you launched it with no offering, right? Did you have the
Correct.
foresight of like, "Hey, we could turn this into something?" Hey, thank you so much for making it this far into the episode. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please leave me a 5-star review if you're on Spotify, and if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button so that you can be up to date on all the latest episodes that I'm putting out, so that you can be a better action taker, so that you can too pursue your passion. So, thanks, and let's get back at it.
No, not at all. So we launched it, and we only did podcasts, and I think everything that I've ever done in business is very much like I always tell people like everything I know about business I learned from the Grateful Dead, and it's same thing. Like same with CrossFit. Like everything I do in business is CrossFit. Like put it out there for free, chase excellence, and all that kind of stuff. And I think we were doing the podcast, and people were like, "How do I interact with you? How do I?" And we launched like a very low key coaching thing, and it was like very. It wasn't half assed. It just wasn't organized, and that kind of crumbled a little. It didn't crumble. Like I think there's some people that are still involved in the coaches group from back then, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't done right, and we were just floundering. Just do like we never stopped recording, even though we weren't making money. And then it wasn't until Marcus came along that we were like, oh, like we're gonna do something with this. But the cool part was because we were so consistent, because we were. That's why Marcus found us.
Can you talk more about that? So that's something that I've been thinking about. Um, that I actually just made a post on is, we said at the beginning of this podcast, like, I hope to inspire people to like pursue their passion, and that doesn't necessarily just mean like coaching CrossFit. Um, but what you had said is like the number one priority first was like provide value. Can you talk like more about that for like somebody who's like, hey, I'm interested in this thing and I want to like sell it, but I'm not doing anything right now.
Yeah, I think you just have to, value can somewhat be synonymous with like create an audience too. Like you, you, what comes first? Like you have to have a bunch of people that want to buy something rather than like I have this cool thing but no one knows about it. And I was talking to my, again my buddy, his name's Howie, and we were like he was like impressed with me somewhat, and like he was like, how'd you like when we graduated college, I was the least successful. All my friends were making like hundreds of thousands of dollars while I'm living in the ghetto, literally making $7 an hour. Now he comes to my new house and like all the like, and it's not only financial stuff, but it's just like he sees it, you know. And I was like, man, I just plugged away. Like, I never gave up on this, even when I tried to. Like, I never did. And I think it's these like tens of thousands of hours, these reps, and I think that's kind of like you have to be willing to put in the work, know it's not going to come overnight, and ultimately like give value. Like everything I've ever done from the first box to the nutrition to best hour was just here it is for free, here it is for free, cool. And then eventually people are like, how do I give you money? And I don't mean that like badly, but I mean like I want whatever you're going to sell. And now created an audience big enough, I think, where it's like if I ever wanted to, it's like whatever product, I'm like, cool, I could probably sell 2,000 of these, call it, right? And Tim Ferriss talks a lot, like, and that's something I've tried to do, especially like on social media, is like stay in my lane. Like, I'm not an influencer. No one's following me because I'm this fit dude, right? They're following me because I'm passionate about CrossFit and I want to help affiliates. And I don't need a million followers. I need 25,000 that care about what I'm saying. And I think more people need to do that. Like they say, like narrow and deep, right? Like focus on your people.
Yeah, when that's the opposite of what a lot of people try to do. Like, even like if I think of like CrossFit coaches, like there will be coaches that they get their they get like a nutrition certification, and they're like, why does anybody want to buy my nutrition coaching? And it's like, well, you haven't demonstrated any value.
Yeah,
Nobody cares that you like got this new slip of paper that says you can coach people. They care that like you provide them help and assistance. And then when you've demonstrated enough of that for free, then they're like, oh, how do I get more and how do I pay you for it?
exactly. Exactly. And I think, you know, we live in a day and age where everyone's an influencer, everyone's like motivating, and like I try my best to unfollow everybody because I'm so annoyed with it. I'm like, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Like, I see a lot of people that I know well putting stuff out there. I'm like, this ain't you. Like, I'm the one having to call you and talk you off ledges, and here you are talking about this and that. I'm like, be real, and also you're not good at this. Like, post about what you're good at. Like, instead of like being one of thousands of people putting out like motivational quotes, like write about like something you're awesome at, and people will seek you out.
That's cool, and that's why that's what I hope that this is coming across as with people is like this is not just like rah rah like you said like you were saying in the beginning like just do it, just take the leap, just take the step, just be brave. And I was like, well, yeah, like
Yeah.
you do have to be brave and take steps, but there's also the reality of like you've got to learn, you got to like this takes a long time, you got to provide value, there's hard stuff. I graduated college and like didn't have anything. I didn't just like turn on a light switch and now here I am.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, like a lot of what I preach and I'm passionate about is because I did it. Like, I took my level 1 in October, I took my level 2 in February, and it was like brand new. I was like, "Oh, there's another one? I'm signing up for it." Like, so when I tell people like get better, seek the next credential, like dig in, like it's because I did it. And then as soon as the level 3 was out, I took that. And I mean, go in the CrossFit Trainer directory and look at every specialty course. What it like? I was traveling the country, taking the nutrition with Rob Wolf, taking powerlifting with Rib, Olympic lifting with Bergner. I took the gymnastics with 3 different people. Like, I was like, how do I get better at this thing?
And that's a different posture
So
than
like that,
how do I get this credential so I can charge people for it?
yeah. I mean, at the time, it was like there were you take these courses. It wasn't they didn't have a directory. It wasn't like anyone else ever knew, other than if you walked into the gym, the certificates were hanging. Right now, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's like these 10,000. Like, I think any master in their craft, the 10,000 hours happen out of passion, and then they realize, oh, now I'm an expert. Not like how do I get perceived to be an expert by doing like because that won't carry you through 10,000 hours, right? Like, passion and dedication to your craft will carry you through it. Not like, oh, one day I hope this pays off. Like, you won't be able to go head down and dig into it
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way.
Like if you want to pursue this as a career or a business or whatever, you have to like it enough to get 10,000 hours and not be paid to be able to get on the other side of
Yeah.
where people actually want to pay you and you could be a professional and this could be your full-time thing.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about the Beatles, right? The Beatles, no matter what you think about music, they're the best, right? They are the best rock and roll band ever. And how'd they get their 10,000 hours? Like, playing for free in bars in Germany, right? Like, and like hours and hours where they just got so good. But they weren't doing that so one day they'd be the Beatles. But by playing in those dive bars, they became the Beatles. If that makes same for me. Like, I didn't pursue my like we joke a lot. Like, I'm a level 4 and all this. Like, where I'm at now in life is a nice luxury because I had that, but I got that level 4 because I wanted to be the best coach I could be.
That's cool. That's really cool. How do you help gym owners how do you help them shift that mindset or do you help them shift that mindset? Cuz a lot of them they come to you like frantic. Sometimes they've got like you were they've got like one foot in the door, one foot out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I use myself a lot, like, and I remind them, like, it's hard. one thing that made it much easier for me was I didn't have kids, I wasn't married, right? Like it was like, cool, I'm not making money anyway. It's not this tremendous risk. Like you went from being a teacher with a wife and kid. That was a risk. Like for me, it was like, well, whatever. Like I'm gonna be homeless anyway. Might as well be homeless doing what I like. So I get that, but I also know from experience now working with enough coaches that like, hey, when you are truly willing to commit to this thing, it's gonna pay off. Like and I preach that to any business owner, like any business owner with one foot out the door or collecting a paycheck elsewhere. I'm like, if you spend those 10, 20 hours working on your business, it would pay off so much more. I know on paper it's like I'm making this much per hour and it's hard to see that, but when you do it, it works.
What do you what do you think the biggest hurdle is for people, not people who already have an affiliate, but like coaches who are like, "Hey, I want to take that leap and I want to like start my own gym." From a mindset perspective, what do you think their biggest setback is, or what do you notice from them?
I think most people just aren't willing to take a risk. I've never been like I'm like I seek risk. I've never been risk adverse. Like whether it's investing, right? I own a Bitcoin, like or in like your own development. Like I'm always like with great risk comes great reward, and I get it. Like easy for Ackerman to say. Like I said, like my biggest risk came when it wasn't as much of a risk as a lot of people have. But I think that because of that risk, like I just am always willing. Like even getting on seminar staff, like even putting yourself out there or traveling around doing all these internships or opening that third affiliate or starting a nutrition company. Like there's small risks always. Like I'm always just willing to try it, and I think more people need to be willing to do that. Like you have a normal job, like cool, you'll be able to get another one.
Well, and I even with, I
Like
mean, like you'd mentioned, like if you have a family, like there's more dynamics that you have to play with. But I do think there's significantly less risk than we feel like there is. One of the go ahead.
and there's also way more upside. Like whatever job you're working at that you're afraid to leave, you know where your ceiling is financially, right? Where as an affiliate owner or starting your own business, like there's literally unlimited potential. So you look at it as, not to get into Bitcoin, but like I believe there's more of a risk in not investing in it. Even like you don't need to be like all in. I don't want you to move all your money, but like if this thing fails, cool. The chances of it going and becoming the norm is worth the risk to me. And it's the same thing when it comes to like business, right? Like, cool, I can sit here for the next 20 years making 40 or 50,000, or I can take a risk. And you know what? In 3 years, if it doesn't work out, maybe I have a little debt and I go back and get a job again. But chances are, if you truly go for it and put that effort in and you have passion, I can't think of anyone that I've worked with that I've been like that has gone back on it. Almost everyone. I can't like I literally can't think of someone that was like, I'm gonna do it, Jay. I'm gonna take this risk. I'm gonna open a box. Or I'm gonna become a and that had to go back to normal work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too that the a lot of people, when they think of the risk, they think of how do I jumpstart to wherever I want to be, and they think of that like financial investment. But like a good example is like our friend Brad, who just started his affiliate in his garage,
I was
and
just
it's
thinking
like
about Brad. Yeah.
that's basically no risk. Like Brad's only risk is his time, which is no risk because he loves doing it. And then the other one is like the financial investment of turning his garage into a gym, which I would also argue is like no risk because if he quits training people, he's going to use that garage gym.
And he's already growing. He's already growing.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of people will look like, well, how do what's the risk of me starting a gym? And they think of the 40 to 80 grand that you could drop to open up this like shiny gym, and it's like, well, you don't need to jumpstart that. Like you're thinking too big too quick, and it's like if you start today, it doesn't have to be a gym, whatever it is. It's like if you start today and you start small and you think, what's the what's the minimum effective dose for me to get closer to this goal, then there really is no risk.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think, I think early on I did realize like, hey, your work is a huge part of your life. Like do something you enjoy. And, that was the one thing that kept me going when I was younger. I stayed in Albany after I graduated. Most of my friends went, off to like Manhattan, that type of area. And we would, when you're first out of college, we'd still get together every so often. And we would go out and like they'd be spending money. I'm like, I can't afford this, right? Like I can't eat these dinners, or go out to drinks like you guys can. And I would like be on that spin bike the next day, teaching to like people. I'm like, this is so much better than what they're doing. And I saw early on, like even at 22, 23, like health is always like the top priority for me. I'm like, and I would see them every time we get together, they'd be a little chubbier, they'd be a little, older looking. And meanwhile, it's like, I'm still fit. I'm like still having fun, like more youthful than them. And, even today at 44, seeing my buddy Howie, it's like, oh, like those 20 years where you were sitting behind a desk and I was exercising, it's paying off.
That's cool.
And it's fun yeah, like, and I love my friends, but like when we get together, they look 44 and I don't, like it's
Well, and I
interesting.
think that's, and I'm not necessarily projecting on your friends, but I think that's the trap is like you can get this immediate gratification of like, go get this safe job because it pays right now and it feels good right now. And then 20 years down the road, you're like, man, I don't like how I look. I don't like what I do. I feel trapped and I'm miserable. Opposed to take the risk. If you take the risk now and, you know, eat the frog now, later on, you're going to be happier
Mhm.
with where you're at.
Yeah, and I think luckily, I think it was, multiple. I don't want to act like, oh, I had that foresight and I saw it. Like I was just like also like part of me just like, cool, like I don't want to get a real job yet. I will. And then you just I stuck with it long enough. But yeah, like even just like raising Madison, my daughter, it's like I think the way you raised your kid later on, when you've enjoyed your life and you enjoy what you do, like I can go up there and have fun with her and be like, I'm not ever like stressed out because like I'm just like, oh, I get to be fun, and like it translates to your entire life doing what you
That's
love.
really cool. And I think it's cool that, you say that about you, but there's tons of testimonies about the gym owners that you help. That like that's ultimately like the things that they've done in their gym per your suggestion and improved their business. Like now their lives are happier. Like and they're probably working out more than they were and they're spending more time with their family and it's more fulfilling. And that's ultimately what I hope to encourage people with this is it's not just about like doing sexy things and like it's not just like oh chase your dream take the leap. It's like if you can lean into this like you will find that fulfillment that you're looking for that you're not finding on Instagram.
Yeah, I think that you have to look at it as a long trajectory, right? Like it's not going to happen. It's no different than your training. Like you can rush it and wind up beat up, tired, hating it, or you can do one workout a day, have fun, and do this for the rest of your life. And you know, the same should be said about what you do. Whether not, hey, and this isn't for everyone. Like I'm sure you have listeners that don't want to be a coach or an owner, but I would just challenge them to like, hey, do what you love, and the results will
That's
come.
cool. Last thing I have, well, one, thanks for doing this. But last question that I have for you is there, thinking ahead to the future, is there anything you're excited about or you plan for, like, I don't know, anything that you're looking ahead for?
Well, we got another baby on the way, so definitely,
Is this
looking
breaking
forward to
news? Is
baby
this the
boy.
first?
No, you knew about this. You knew about
Should I
this.
clip this?
No,
Jason Ackerman, his second baby.
no. But Roz did text me this morning that we agreed on a name, so
Awesome.
um, I won't say that yet because I never know if I'm allowed to. Um, no,
Did you
I
say it was a
honestly, I
boy?
wake
Do
up
you
every
know?
day. Yeah, we knew it was a boy. Did I
I
not
didn't
tell
know
you
that.
that?
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna name him Christian.
That's
Um,
weird that you're Jewish.
I know, right? Um, oh man, I love to. So my buddy was over this past couple days, and we started talking about religion. I was talking about you with him. You know, when you and Kayla and Dominic were here, I love talking about religion. And he leaves, and Roz is like, "Why do you always try to talk about religion?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Because I find it fascinating. Like, I'm not ever like I hope I never come across as like closed minded when it comes to it. Like, I love hearing people's beliefs and like I want everyone to believe in what they believe, but I just find it fascinating. And she gets so angry with me. And I'm like, no, I love it. Like, I love hearing about like, same with politics, like Democrat, Republican, whatever. Like, I just love hearing people's opinions. And I think that's partly why I am where I'm at because I'm just like, so I think sometimes I probably come off as closed minded when it comes to CrossFit. I'm not like do your thing. I love hearing your
I can
opinions.
love my thing. Like I
I don't
can
know how
love
it is.
my thing and also be curious about your thing.
Yeah, I'm just like I think part of why I'd never come off as super offensive, even though I am often, is because I'm truly like just curious. Like if I ask you a question, I never am trying to be like mean or rude about it. Like I just, oh, that's interesting that that's your opinion. Like I want to know more about it. Like that's all. When and I always try to think about it from the perspective, especially politics. Like you get people like really extreme, and I'm like, hey, that person you're disagreeing with believes as much as you do about what they believe in, and it's like you just have to remember that about people. Um. Anyway, I don't know how we got there from your question of what I'm looking forward to, but we got a baby on the way, and then I was just saying, I'm honestly, I wake up every day like fired up to help affiliates. Like I am honored to get to do what I love. And like you said, it's rarely about seeing affiliates make more money. It's helpful, don't get me wrong, but it's the affiliates that are like, oh, I do what I love every day. I get to do the same thing you're doing. I wake up and love coaching and love creating this community. And you know, CrossFit coaches, I think, forget how impactful they are on everyone around them. Like, in a day and age, like leave your house, go to the grocery store and look around. That's normal, right? Overweight, unhealthy, on medications, and the people at your box, like, man, you are changing their lives. Once again, someone was arguing with me about best hour of their day. I hope it's not the best hour of their day. And I'm like, you've lost sight of it, dude. Like, you're just arguing for the sake of arguing. I hope you have more enjoyable hours with your wife, your kids, doing other things. But here's how I was thinking about how I would respond, which I won't because I don't respond to turds on the internet. Hey, stop working out for a month and tell me how the rest of your life is going. Right? Like, I hope it's not the best hour of your day. Spend time with Dominic. Watch Star Wars with him. Do whatever your kids want to do and your wife. But the time in the box makes everything else
Awesome.
better.
I love it. Thanks, man.